Welcome back to the Gen Z Speaks podcast. We have a really special guest, but before I introduce him, let me introduce my amazing, not so amazing, sometimes amazing co-hosts. Matthew Gutierrez, the future of business, real estate, project management, everything. How you doing, man?
Pretty good, dude. Just cruising by this week, right?
Cruising by. Last but not least, the tech wizard. The new title that we gave Jenish is our tech wizard. How you doing? The future of Intel. I forgot to mention that. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Just, enjoying life.
Oh, man. You always say that. I never understand what you mean. Enjoying life.
What do you mean, man? Just enjoying life. We living out here, you know what I mean?
All right. Well, we have a special guest, like I said in the beginning of the podcast. His name is Percy Kim. He's a filmmaker studying film at USC. Thomas has already made a series of short films. His short film C was bought out by HBO Max, and you can see it there. His current short film that he recently produced, Busan 1999, is currently in the film festival circuit, and we're happy to have Thomas on the show. He's a really talented filmmaker, and his short films have garnered a lot of attention, both on the critic side and on the business side of the entertainment industry. So we're lucky to have you, Thomas. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm, a filmmaker from sunny Los Angeles, thinking about maybe moving to New York, but we'll see. And just happy to chat with you guys, talk about everything about, diversity and, what we're talking about, like what the youth are talking about and everything in between. So happy to be here.
Well, I want to start with, you get this question a lot, I'm sure, but I'm really curious. What was the moment that you realized that filmmaking is what I want to do for the rest of my life? Like, what was that, if you have a moment, or what inspired you to do what you do now?
Man, hitting with the hard questions. In freshman year of high school, that's like when I started filmmaking because, I found a Canon DSLR in my closet, my parents' closet in middle school. Started taking photos, became like the artsy Instagram, hashtag artsy fartsy Instagram kid in middle school. And I wanted to take photography class in high school, right? And my guidance counselor was like, Thomas, sorry, like basically what she was saying is like all the white Visco girls, like they signed up for the photography class and it was full, so I couldn't sign up. And so she was like, my guidance counselor was just like, take filmmaking. And I thought filmmaking was like analog film, photography with film. I didn't know anything about it. I took it, I realized it wasn't photography. It was this entirely different medium. And I was like, wow, this is, there's a cheesy quote that every film student knows where it's like, filmmaking is photography 24 times per second. But that's really what I thought. I was like, oh my God, this is it's like a bigger canvas for me to play in. I started working on this stop motion short film that took me from freshman year to junior year. And that was, got about $13K in awards money from that. And then that was also my application film for USC. It just led me to a lot of cool places. But, when I was making that short film, that was like film school to me, going from storyboarding to VFX. That short film, if anyone's seen Coraline, it's kind of like Coraline where it's like these puppets. And then I like made a custom software that could basically extract live action actors' eyes and then paste them onto these puppets, kind of like the way Snapchat uses like their face filters, but it was all before this came out on Snapchat, right? So I did that, that was amazing. And that was like film school to me. And that's kind of like where I fell in love, I think, with filmmaking and realized, wow, like this is something that I get, I know maybe you guys have that moment in life where it's like, oh, wait, this is something that just comes easy to me. Just like I understand it, like something like math, like academia, I never really got it, but something about filmmaking and telling stories and the craft of it all just felt so easy and right. And so I just kept following it. And I was like, this is sick. I'm just gonna keep doing it.
I want you to tell us a story about how you made C, because it's really interesting. You made your stop motion short film. And I think filmmaking is a lot about entrepreneurship. And you, correct me if I'm wrong, but you got $13K from it, and then you put that money into making C. Then you started a Kickstarter, and then you got investors to pitch in as well. And so talk to us, because it's a high budget short film. I think the budget was $30,000, right, for C. So tell us how you made that happen and just the hustle that it took to make C.
Yeah, I mean, it was like 23K, not 30, but absolutely. I mean, I think the reason why I've gotten to where am today is because I am someone who puts all my eggs into one basket, and this is a strategy that might not work for everyone, but a lot of people, starting up in the film industry or wherever they are, they kind of spread themselves a little bit too thin. They work on a lot of projects to get the bad ones out of the way, I suppose, which makes sense, quantity over quality. But also, my strategy has always been quality over quantity. Every single project that I work on it as if it's my last, project. I'll put all of my savings into it, everything I have into it, and like just go all out. Find the biggest cast that I can find. Cold email hundreds of people to find, the right crew and cast, etc. And I think that entrepreneurial spirit has always really paid off. I invested, basically, yeah, again, everything from the stop motion film, in awards money, invested all of my savings from working at a camera shop, and then yeah, again, did the Kickstarter thing, got some more money, and then just put all that into my first live action short film, right? So, I'm always trying to jump as high as I can on that ladder, instead of going one rung at a time. I really think like when you invest everything you have into one project, you're bound to get a bigger return. So I'm like all in, go all in or nothing. You know what I mean? And again, it's a risky move, but so far, every single time it's paid off, financially and career wise. So yeah, we did put together that money senior year of high school, cast the guy from Kyung Lee from Maze Runner, and then again, like everyone on the cast and crew was cold called, cold emailed. I didn't know a single person in the film industry except for the cinematographer, who was this buddy that I met, at a like a film festival kind of thing called Young Arts. Anyone who's under 18 and is an artist, I cannot recommend that organization enough. They've given me like almost like 40K and just basically just like, to fly me out to Miami for a week, to fly me out to New York, LA, and just like do all these conferences and events. Guys should look it up if you guys don't know anything about it. But anyways, yeah, did that, and then I met the cinematographer for C, from Young Arts, right? So he was this other 18-year-old who had never shot on this thing called Lexa Mini, which is that Hollywood camera. We were just running around, in Massachusetts, just filming this thing with like an actual professional crew, and again, like a legit cast. Yeah.
To see you say that you want to put all your eggs in one basket and then like run with it, I feel like that's such a difficult thing for people to even grasp, right? Because I mean, even successful people, I hear a lot of successful people say that, but then you'll see other people say like, try as many things as you can. You're young, go after everything, anything you want to do, just run with it. And it just seems like there's just varying like determinations of success, right? Like people do all types of things, and just because somebody does something doesn't mean it's right, and just because somebody does something else doesn't mean they're right. So it's just cool to see that you're young, dude. You're killing it. You're ambitious, and just yeah. So out of curiosity, man, is there like, are you like a film buff, or was there anything like that really piqued your interest, and you're like, yeah, let me get into that because of this?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't start off as a film buff. I grew up watching solely Star Wars, Harry Potter, Ghibli, just like the most, cliche, run-of-the-mill robot action, sci-fi kind of stuff, because my dad loves that stuff. So I had no introduction to cinema at all growing up. It was only after I discovered filmmaking, saw films like Whiplash, Moonlight, the 2016 era, I fell into filmmaking, and then I began to discover, the decades of films before Moonlight and La La Land, and became, I think, a film buff then, then and there. Yeah.
Any specific ones that like piqued your interest, and like that's how you kind of want to curate your filmmaking?
Yeah, I think with the stop motion film, at that time I just hadn't seen enough films. I then, I was, I think, more commercial minded in the sense that, like, I was trying to replicate, those traditional animated films where, you watch something like, I don't know, Spirited Away or Coraline, and then you just have an idea for a story that's a little bit more formulaic. It's like, oh, there's like, something happens, and then there's just the formula in story structure. There's a formula to these stories, and that's kind of where I was leaning towards. And then I discovered art house cinema. I think Moonlight is such a great example of bringing art house to mainstream audiences. It's a film that's, yes, it's like micro budget, it was sub-million, or just over $1 million, and it had employed these very formalistic techniques, but it was also very immersive. A lot of art house films, low budget stuff, can be either prohibited by the money, like the lack of funds, or it can just come off a little bit pretentious and slow, which I love. I'm a sucker for those films too. It's just sometimes hard to sit through. So I think what Moonlight did so well is just like balance, like hip hop music, for example, with like the art house, really thoughtful cinematography and story. And another like comparison film would be this old film called A Brighter Summer's Day by this guy named Edward Yang. There's Wong Kar-wai. So many examples, I think, of making art house more mainstream. And by art house, it's like a loose definition of independent cinema, which is usually something that's just low budget, just because the more bigger budget you get, the more commercial you get, the more people have expectations of what that product needs to be, so that they can sell it, so that they can get it to as many audiences as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Going back to SI a little bit, you mentioned that you cold emailed a bunch of not directors, but cinematographers, actors. So you get all these people, you get all these talented people together, and you directed the movie, correct? So
That's correct.
You were the leader. So how did that feel? You have all these talented people, and you're just a young director. Did it feel? Were you like nervous? Were you scared that you were gonna mess up, or how was that? Walk me through that.
Yeah, of course I was nervous. Like I remember filming the first day and then going to bed and literally waking up mid sleep in sweat, being like, oh my God, we missed that shot, even though that was just like a nightmare. You're just something about being on set. There's just so much pressure. You're on a time crunch. It's very, very stressful. But I think so. It was a great learning experience. Now I go in with so much prep, so that I can play on set. I can improv on set and play with the actors and find the scene, because I've done so much preparation beforehand. But back then, I didn't know how that worked. As a director, there's only so many days you're on set, so there's only so much time you can practice. Ibrahim, we actually met at an acting class, and that is incredibly valuable, because there's only so much time that you spend with actors on set, that any sort of practice you can get outside of set is so valuable. I think one of the biggest things I've learned on that the first few days while shooting that was just like, okay, you yell cut, right? You yell cut, and then as you're walking to the actor, like 10 seconds, you have to think of the most brief, concise way to say something that will get them to spark their creativity and their imagination to change their behavior, right? So it's like reverse psychology, sort of, but without, you're using techniques of like reverse psychology to like almost hint at something without telling them to do a certain thing, if that makes sense, because you never want to puppeteer an actor. Right. And so it's a very difficult practice that is unlike any other craft out there. It's so unlike, it's the opposite of cinematography. It's the opposite of like technical aspects of filmmaking, and it requires a lot of training and thought. And so that was one of the most challenging things for me. You yell cut, and then like in those 10 seconds, how are you going to convince this person to do something, to change their behavior without having them lose their ego, or like without hurting their ego,
without the pressure involved, right?
Yeah, exactly. Sure. And that was very challenging. Also because the main actor, Ki Hong Lee, he's an actual actor, right? So he's done this for longer than I've been alive, and he was just like, at one point, I remember he was like, Thomas, do you just want me to be like more like angry in the scene? And like I was just like, oh, it's just the senior actor just fucking with the amateur director, you know what I mean, like the first time director, like. But I was like, I didn't have any other solutions, like kind of, you know, bring up the stakes in the scene. So it's just like, yeah, you know, maybe that's it, you know, maybe that's just what we need. So I go back to the monitor, like, you know, action, and you know, he brings it. He brings authenticity to that very basic word, you know. And I also realized at that point, you know, like different actors, different level of actors, like require different kind of direction. If you talk to what's his name, Denis Villeneuve, he just shot like Dune and shit. Um, I know that when he works with like top cast, he just says like slower or faster or more this or more that, and it's like all the things that you wouldn't want to say, that you learn not to say in acting school. But really trained professional actors, they know how to get there. They know how to find the truth in those words. So that's something else I learned too. You know.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It seems like as a director, it's just there's so many factors you need to take into account, and like you mentioned, it's a lot about preparation and just trying to understand the scene before you know, going out there and directing the actors. You know, it feels like to me directors are kind of like army generals where they kind of have to just tell everyone what to do, right? And that's really just how it is.
I don't know about that actually. I think it depends, right, Thomas? I mean, like everybody has their own directing style, and you know, some directors definitely are army generals, whereas some directors are very, you know, relaxed on set, and they spend more time in rehearsal. So by the time they get on set, you know, everybody knows what they're doing. So Thomas, how would you describe yourself as a director? I mean, I'm sure you're young, you're still figuring it out, but like of all the movies you've shot, like how would you describe your directing style?
Yeah, I think there is this misconception in Hollywood that like as the director, you know, you are this guy literally on top of everyone else with a bullhorn telling everyone like move here, move there, you know, do this, do that. And I think that's a very inundated idea. I think as a director, your job, you don't have the bandwidth on a feature film like to micromanage everybody, right? And so the role of the director is not to be, you know, commanding like a general, but I imagine it like you're in a dark tunnel and there's a line, you know, and you're at the front of that line and you're the only one with a flashlight, you know. Everyone, the entire crew team is behind you, they're following you, right? And you have a flashlight in this dark tunnel. And you can choose what to shine your light on, right? And then they will find, you know, for example, like if you have an art director, you know, they're a person, you know, they have their own creativity. There's a reason why they wanted to be an art director, you know. As a director, if they come up to me asking me like, oh, should this dress be red or green? You know, I'll ask them, oh, what do you think? You know, because they've read the script, they know the story. There's a reason why I hired them, you know. Presumably they're very talented and very, you know, professional. And so I want their input, you know what I mean? I'm just shining the light on these options and I want them to take charge. Yeah, so I think that's kind of like the way I want to direct. Yeah.
Nice. It seems like the way you're describing it is kind of a general consensus now with leaders, and especially, I mean, I think it's a general consensus in business, and I don't know about politics yet, but I think it's like kind of going this way, right? Where back in like, I know definitely in the 50s, you can look at marketing agencies, right? And these directors at these marketing agencies, they're just commanding like, hey, I want this or I want that. And they're not letting like the guys down below have creativity, have some sort of flow, because I mean, in reality, everybody has a brain. And so some people's workflow, it might be a little different than yours, and maybe it's a little better than yours, right? And so I think this just varies a lot. But generally, I think what you're saying is like the right approach, because when you just guide people and not command people, they tend to actually do what you kind of want them to do, right? But it just feels like it's in their power. And now their ego is a little higher and they're a little more, you know, confident about things. And so I think generally, I think that's a good way to go about your directing style, man, because you don't want people to hate you at the end of the day, right? Maybe you're a genius at directing, but I mean, does it really matter if everybody hates you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just a little, you know, story I have for that is I know people who have said this where basically, you know, there's, you know, a female director on set, and she feels the need to be, a first time female feature director, right? And they often feel the need to, oh, like I need to be like a man, I need to command everyone because that's how I'm gonna get everyone's respect, so I'm gonna be very tough. I want to be very like decisive and this and that, right? And people on on your team, the cast and crew, day one, their job is to suss out the director, because that will determine whether their entire shooting schedule will be relaxed or not. Like whether if you have a good leader, like a cool leader, then great. Like the production will move so so smoothly, and everyone will like that person and respect him. And like if you need a favor, if you need to go overtime, like they'd happily do that. But I've heard these stories where these like first time female directors will act very like macho, and unfortunately like people smell that right away. You know what I mean? And it's tough. And I've also heard of like very experienced female directors who are just, they go up to, they're just themselves, they're just themselves. They go up to an actor and be like, I don't know, they're just themselves, they're embracing that feminine energy or whatever. And everybody just loves that, because they're being authentic and they're not thinking that they're better than anyone else. It's ultimately, that's what it is. Like, it's an ego thing, I think the director should put themselves at the lowest, or at least pretend to gain everyone's trust. And I don't know, something I've been thinking about recently is just the business in general. Like, I don't know about the tech industry at all, but like in the film executive agency, production company world, it really seems like the young people that are coming up, they are more interested in being friends with people that they work with. Maybe this applies to, the older generation too, but like, I feel like Gen Z, they want to work with friends. And so I think that's something that I've really noticed in like a lot of generals and meetings that I go to. If they're young, below 25 or whatever, they want to be friends. Like that's first. And then from that foundation, you want to build a working relationship. There's like this like no asshole policy, they're just more woke, I guess. I don't
Do you think that works?
I think, I don't know. When I was in Korea this summer, I took a meeting with, one of the biggest like Korean production companies. And the way the industry works over there is this thing called Chuseok. I mean, not Chuseok, that's Korean Thanksgiving. What am I talking about? It's a thing called I forget what it's called. But basically, the way people do business over there is they drink together. So what we did was we went out, we got dinner, and then we just drank all night, and built like this friendship, I guess, through that. And it was definitely a culture shock for me. But I understand why they did it, because afterwards you're just like, also in Korea, there's a strong notion of like brothers and sisters and like that kind of family bond between, friends. And so suddenly after you drink together and, you see the best and the worst of each other, you're like, you're like siblings. And then you can, from there, you build a working relationship. I thought that was really cool. It kind of breaks down the traditional meetings and generals that I've had where it's just so transactional. It's like everyone's like, wants something or needs something from someone else, which is why you take that meeting. And I think a lot of young people, at least, or at least like the industry seems to be changing so that people, want to just work with people that they like. That's more important than the product itself, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I grew up, I think most of us grew up like this, right? Like you don't talk about business and politics and religion, right? With friends and family, and you definitely don't go into business or talk about money with friends and family. But I'm seeing that more in our generation, especially in our generation, actually, that there's very low loyalty when it comes to business. And so like if you're an employee for a business, you don't feel like you owe them much, right? Because in reality is they don't care about you, right? So you're just going to leave whenever you want. But the difference is when you do business, if you're a good person, at least, if you do business with like a friend or family, there's a loyalty aspect there, right? And so you kind of feel tied together. and you already get along. And so, I mean, hopefully you guys don't screw each other over. But at the end of the day, I think it might be a stronger bond than going into business with somebody transactionally only, like you're saying, because there's just a bond there. I mean, you guys want to make it, and so maybe that's what you're gonna do.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be so much nicer to make cool shit with your friends, than just some random person that feels very cold and passive? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess in tech, if you look at these big companies, big corporations, it is very transactional, I would say, where, I mean, yeah, the young new interns and stuff, they try to become friends and stuff, but overall it doesn't feel like let's become friends and work together. But if you look in the startup field, in where real innovation is happening, you see a lot of these founders of startups were just friends, friends working in a garage and just thinking of cool shit and like, let's do stuff, so it does feel like a lot of innovative and expressive ideas come through friendships.
I think especially in creative spaces, the good thing about working with your friends, right, is that the initial layer of formality is kind of gone. Like, I feel like a lot of times if you work at an office, right, and it's your boss and you're working for him or her, a lot of times it's that layer of formality doesn't really allow you to fully express yourself. Whereas if you're working with your friend, right, you can call him up or him or her at nighttime or anytime you want, and you can just be fully vulnerable with them. And I think in creative spaces, that's so important. And I think, if you forge the right partnerships, things can definitely go the right way. But I think when things don't work out and you're working with your friends, it can also be tough. So I don't know. I think it's like there's both sides to it, but I definitely see the point in working with friends. I want to go back to the point that Thomas, you made about, being on set and the night before you got nervous. I mean, I think everybody who's doing something new gets nervous. That's like a human nature thing. But I want to ask you how you overcame your imposter syndrome. Okay, I think everyone has this, especially with you making that, high budget short film. You're on set the first day and you're like, wow, I'm here, I made it. What do I do next? And so like, tell me how I mean, I think it's an evolving process for me, especially as a creative. It's like every single day you feel like maybe you're not the right person to lead a team, or maybe you feel like, you have times where creatively you just don't feel productive. And so how do you keep yourself going, and how do you overcome that imposter syndrome that seems to never go away?
Yeah. Just before we get into that, I want to kind of quickly touch on something about what we just talked about just being a good person. Again, I don't know how this applies to tech industry, but something that I've really thought about and realized recently was I don't go into meetings or any sort of business stuff with an expectation anymore. And I try and bring that to my life stuff too, like whether it's relationships or whatnot. Maybe that's a very cynical way of looking at things, but it's really helped me a lot, and I've only had good things happen from that. And what I mean by that is, like going to meetings beforehand, I would, it's a business meeting, right? So like they've read the script, they've seen the pitch materials, they want to track me, and so we're talking business, right? And I go into it expecting like, oh, like I'm gonna try, like maybe this could be the meeting that will get me financing or whatever, you know what I mean? But nowadays, after kind of seeing, how this Korean company works, like I was just so inspired, and I think I've shifted my perspective into being like, okay, I'm gonna go into anything without an expectation of anything. I don't want something from them. If they offer, great, we'll see what happens, but no expectation, right? And so what happens is I can be my authentic self, and 9 times out of 10, the other person loves it because one, it's more memorable, it's memorable. And so they'll, I think that's huge. Being memorable is huge in life, because there's so much crap out there, so many people who want the same thing. How do you become memorable and stand out, right? You're memorable and also you're authentic, and they can smell that. People who work in the industry, they can smell authenticity a million miles away. And when you just are your full self, like just no filters. Obviously, like I'm not gonna be like bantering like a bro or anything like that, but I'm just like just very open about everything, and being honest and like talking about like really like like where's your soul at? How's your soul doing? You know what I mean? Like talking like deep stuff. And that's always, I don't know, I've seen a lot of success from just being, just someone who doesn't expect anything from these meetings. And then also because of that, they see like, oh, you're a good person, right? And then, if we do make something together and you make something that's good, right? And suddenly they can associate a good person with a good product. And then suddenly it's like a self-sustaining cycle where people are attracted to you because not only have you proven yourself as a good person, but also you are talented and you can make something, you can actually deliver on your words. And then it's like, and then you have integrity, and then you build trust. And then it's just like, I don't know, building a community, And so I think that's really, really important. And it's just been very helpful for me, thinking like that. And then to your point about the self-imposter syndrome, yeah, of course I have imposter syndrome, who doesn't, I think when I was shooting C, I know when I was writing it, I had so much of it. And I just kind of put my head down and just kind of blasted through. During filming, I was just way too busy to even like think about that. But it's always in prep and like writing that I go through a round of imposter syndrome. Whenever I write something, I look back on it, I leave it in the drawer for a couple months, look back on it, and then like, this is the worst thing I've ever read. I'm a piece of shit, And I think the only thing that's really helped me is just grounding myself and not thinking about the future. When you look at the top of the mountain, you realize how much you have to go, and you realize where you are on that mountain. But I think for me, ignorance has been a little bit of a bliss in the sense that, I try not to focus too much on anything outside of just the craft. If your why is very clear and your why is, altruistic and just doesn't have any ulterior motive, then I think, it's very easy to look outside of, what you're doing and like go like, oh, I need to, make a film that will get me to this film festival or get me to here. I need to do this or I need to do this assignment so I can get into a good college or get into a good job or whatever. But just kind of separating all that and just kind of focusing back onto the reasons why you got into that in the first place and why you're doing something, I want to tell stories. I want to change people's lives. I want to do this and that. I think those reasons are the reasons why I do what I do. And also, keeps me looking down at my feet, and not being so bogged down by, yeah.
That's so important. Everyone in life has those ups and downs, but like speaking from personal experience, something that's helped me repeatedly is kind of just taking a deep breath and reminding myself of why I'm doing something, like the bigger picture. I think people get, because of our lives and how busy sometimes things can be, we kind of lose sight of why we started things, why we want to pursue things. And like, it's crazy to say, but we completely forget at times, like why you started something or why you're doing this. And so you're right. Keeping that initial thing in mind, it just grounds you and it motivates you. It brings you up when you're feeling down. So I definitely feel you there. I want to talk to you about kind of the two films that we all watched and that, have garnered a lot of attention. C is more so a story about, I was watching an interview of yours and you talked about how there's a lot of internalized self-oppression that immigrants feel. So talk to us about what motivated you to write C, and tell us something about the film that inspired you to finish it and bring it to a screen after the screenplay.
Yeah, the story is based on me and my friend whose name is C. He was a Korean American adoptee from where we grew up, Concord, Massachusetts. And, he's had a crazy life. He's, been to drug rehab, mental facilities, ran away, ran out of, away from the country, like just a crazy life. Very, it's crazier than fiction, and we never really talked throughout much of middle school or high school. We just didn't really want to associate with each other, being one of the few Asian Americans in a majority white, environment.
Sorry to cut you off. You're from Concord, Massachusetts, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a
he
really, like you said, it's a really liberal, very like what 90% of the population's white. We're talking 90,
probably more than 90. Yeah.
What?
Like 90,
Okay.
probably
Okay.
95. It's becoming more diverse now, and things are changing. But when I was growing up, it was still very non-diverse. And C is this guy. He's huge. He's jacked. He works out. Kind of the opposite of he wanted to go against the the Asian stereotype of being like skinny, et cetera, et cetera. And again, we never really talked, but as I was writing this short film, I was reflecting on my own identity, and I reached out to him, and I was like, hey, I'd love to talk. And he worked at an ice cream parlor at the time, and I would come over after his shift, and we'd just sit down in the basement and just talk about our experiences growing up. And we realized, obviously there are differences. I think for one, his experiences were a lot more dramatic than mine, just because, he was adopted. He had no connection to his Korean heritage, whereas I could always go back home to my Korean parents and embrace that culture if I wanted to. He did not have that opportunity. So I think because of that, it just, a lot of his I hate to use the word problems, but like, his internalized self-oppression, I think, was a lot bigger than mine. It had more gravity to it. And so, but we also realized that our experiences in Concord were also very, very similar, and so that's kind of where the root of See, the short film, came from. And after I made the film, I showed it to him, and, he said, that it, changed his life. And, he realized that a lot of his problems kind of came from the fact that he didn't like who he was when he saw himself in the mirror. And that's exactly how I felt. That's what I felt. I just didn't have the words to describe that feeling, because I didn't know about the Asian American experience, or there's a transracial adoptee experience. There's so many experiences, the universal foreigner's experience. Like, I just didn't know any of that. I didn't know that was a thing, and so making the movie has been my way of dealing with it and understanding that I felt these things. And from there, I can heal, right? And same for him. Like, him watching the movie has been a healing process for him, because now he knows that there is this thing called, internalized self-oppression, this self-hatred against, Asian Americans and foreigners and minorities, not liking the way they look, right? And that has a huge impact on them, on their identity in a place like high school, where it's just, everyone's fighting for an identity. And so I was like, if this could change one person's life, change mine and his, then like, what could a feature film do? What could a 2-hour version do? What could something with a bigger audience do? And so that's why now we're turning that into a feature film. We're halfway through financing it. It's like a $7 million budget. And hopefully we're going to shoot that next year. But there's a lot of Asian American representation on media. There's a lot of diversity stuff happening, but there really isn't. There isn't actually none that I've seen so far. Like, talk about things like covert racism, like microaggressions, like what it's really like being someone who doesn't fit the majority image. You know what I mean? I'm sure you guys have felt this too. It's just like sometimes it's like the smallest of things, like you sitting at the end of a lunch table or something. You know what I mean? It's just like the smallest thing, but it all builds up, and sometimes you don't even have the words to describe what you're feeling and the oppression that you're feeling. But it's 1000% there, and that's kind of why we told that story. That's why we're doing the feature film, and again, that's what inspired me to finish the short film. I'm just
I think storytelling is so powerful, right? Because like you said, it allows people to be seen on screen. And what you said, your short film See allowed your friend to be seen, and it can help a person heal when someone realizes that, oh, like there's people out there just like me going through the same experiences. I'm not alone. And I think that's something that I struggle with a lot. As a young 20-year-old, sometimes you feel so isolated by the glitz and glams of everything and just stuff going around you, that you feel like you're the only person going through what you're going through, but you're not. And I think storytelling lets you confirm that, okay, yeah, so I am not the only one. There's other people going through the same stuff, and that, you know, I can take it one day at a time, and that, you know, I don't have to go through this whole process so alone. Like I can share what I'm feeling and be vulnerable, but not everybody has that privilege to be vulnerable and open. Like you and your friend had the opportunity to, you know, kind of connect over the similar experiences you guys were facing at that time.
Right. And hopefully, you know, the film is not only a way to, yeah, you know, feel less alone, but it's also hopefully a conversation starter, right? That's the most important thing. Like me making the film was a way for me and my parents to talk about drugs and identity and what it was like growing up in Massachusetts, you know, things that we would never, ever in a million years talk about, you know, in an Asian household, you know. But me making the film, talking about the script and running ideas to them, like that was our way to talk about these very taboo subjects and, you know, sex and drug, whatever, you know. And so that was, you know, again, so when people see the film, like hopefully one, they get an idea of, you know, maybe these things I felt too. Maybe, okay, now I'm starting to notice these things in my life where it's like I'm experiencing microaggression or whatever. But also, you know, when other people see it, when their friends see it, they have a conversation about it, you know, because I think that's really important. It's not enough to be a passive, you know, what's the word? A passive ally. I think you have to be an active ally and really make an effort to go against prejudice and against racism. You know what I mean? It's not just enough to be like, oh, I'm against racism. You have to be active, you know, fighting against it. You know, it's like the Black Princess model. You know, the Black Princess idea. You know, there's this, you know, idea. You know, it's like representation. Oh, it matters. Why? Because you know, so that people can see themselves on screen. But like, why? You know, when a little Black girl sees a Black princess on screen, you know, people talk about that as if it's like, you know, I don't know. But I think when a little Black girl sees themselves on screen as a princess, something beautiful, I think it has a profound impact on them and, you know, their growing up, you know, more than we can ever imagine. And so I think the power of that, like you said, is just huge.
Yeah,
that's an interesting point. So I don't know what it is, but I'm very mixed, right? So I'm like half Mexican and then half literally like everything else. I have like Turkish blood, Pakistani blood, Portuguese blood, like it's all over the map, right? And it's interesting when I hear people talk about this because like I can sympathize with it, but I've never felt that way, I guess. Like it was kind of funny because you said like sitting at the end of the lunch table. I remember in like elementary school, like I would intentionally choose like to sit at the end of the lunch table, and I don't know what it is, but I've never felt that like kind of left out feeling. You know what I mean? But I can totally understand. Something that really hit me in your short film actually was when, you know, I found out that he was adopted, right? And I think being adopted, that's extremely difficult. You know, to not have like the sense of like true family, blood family, to not have the sense of, you know, how a mother would truly cater for you, right? I mean, your mom can be good to you as a stepmom, right? But it's just not the same. And, you know, your dad it's just not the same. And then to grow up in a society, you know, where you're kind of left out and you're just trying to fit in, you're trying to figure it out. You're bobbing and weaving, making sure that you're making the right moves. And so I think that's what hit me the most. Yeah.
I think, Matt, it's the power of storytelling is everybody has their own experiences, right? That's why it's so important to just let people express themselves and be creative. Like your story might, you know, some other people might have experienced as well. With Thomas's story, there's a lot of other people who've experienced it as well. It's like
Absolutely.
The beauty of filmmaking is that it should represent our collective stories, the stories of every, you know, in some sort of way, it should represent a diversity of human experiences, and that can entail a whole range of things. And that's why it's so important to have people who look different than each other on screen, right? So that people can see themselves on screen, like going back to that main point. Thomas, I want to talk to you about, you know, the financing aspect of your feature film. So you make C, HBO Max picks it up, and now you're making a feature based off of that. Is it loosely based off, would you say, or kind of mainly based off?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the same world, you know.
Okay.
So it's based off of it. Absolutely.
It's based off of it, and now you're using WeFunder, which is an online financing platform for films and other startups. and you've raised over $230,000. So you make a short film, HBO Max picks it up, and now you're trying to make a feature. And so you're not stopping for financing options. You're kind of just hustling, and now you've raised over $230,000, which is incredible. What's next? And what have you learned through this financing process in trying to make this feature?
Yeah, let me tell you.
It's hard, man. It's hard to make a movie. It's not easy.
Yeah, man. I wrote this feature script during COVID, which is 2019. And I have an agent at APA. She's really great. And we started sending out the script, like normally in Hollywood, you have the script and then you have an agent and they send it out to a bunch of companies, right? And that's normally how it goes. But, I knew before we even sent it out that like no one would bite, I know that this is a story that's really great. I know like from it's coming from the bottom of my heart, and it's if I can execute it on it, I know that my vision will be good. Like I know I can make the film, and I guess what I'm trying to say. The thing is, there's a million other people waiting in line who are, if not equally or more experienced than me, older than me, have more connections than me, have more money than me, et cetera, right? And so I knew statistically the odds are against me. You know what I mean? There are so many people out there who want the same amount of money, who are fighting for the same amount, and they've already shot a feature or two. They already have experience. Why would anyone invest in a first-time young Asian American filmmaker, writer, director, right? In Hollywood, it's all about, obviously it's like we're in a capitalistic society. It's about money, it's about return. It's about, et cetera, et cetera. And so no one would invest in the project, right? We did the whole general thing. We sent it out, I took a bunch of these things called general meetings so that they can track me in the project, these companies. But it just felt so transactional. It was on Zoom, nothing came out of it. I just felt so like hopeless, I was like, how do I make this thing? I know these companies aren't going to invest in me. I wouldn't if I were them. You know what I mean? Like, why take the risk when there's so many other people? And then I did this lab with this guy named Jim Cummings, who's kind of like the king of independent cinema. He ran this thing called a Shorts to Feature Lab. I did it with him, and he kind of showed me how he financed his third feature film called The Beta Test. And he did that through this platform called WeFunder, right? WeFunder is a platform like Kickstarter, except instead of donations, it's equity based. So basically anyone can invest in your film and be a part of your community and also get ROI on your film, right? When the film makes money. Again, making movies, it's a speculative investment. It's not like a tech startup, so it's a lot more riskier, but there's also the appeal of Hollywood, et cetera, film festivals, the whole production thing, and people buy into that. And so, hopefully we also make a return on the film, and we'll make back money and multiply their money after we make the film. But it's a tougher sell than like a tech startup, you know what I mean? But we launched the WeFunder in May of this year, and Jim's been such an incredible help. He's our EP, and since May, we've raised over $270,000 in and out of WeFunder. There's extra $40K outside of WeFunder that we're gonna funnel through, and then we have a bunch of like pending investors, and so I'm not worried at all that we're gonna hit the $350,000 goal in the next month or two. We're just trying to close that out ASAP, just so that we can kind of focus on the more creative stuff. So once we get that 350, we're also talking with a handful of production companies who would basically gap finance up to the million mark. So that's the budget, and then hopefully we'll go into production and shoot it next spring. But the thing I wanted to mention is that once I started the WeFunder and started, people started, the everyday people, just people who have money, people who believe in the project. Usually it's like friends and family, but all my family's in Korea. They're all like, what are you doing? Like, they don't know me, you know what I mean? So it's just all like random people, literally just hundreds of thousands of cold emails, cold calls, LinkedIn's, etc., to raise this money. You know what I mean? I didn't know no one I knew on every big investor above $1,000 on WeFunder that I've raised so far is someone that I don't know. You know what I mean? Someone I just had a Zoom call with or phone call with, and then they were like, "This is great." But something that I've realized, or something that we realized was once we had the WeFunder running, then people were interested. Then these companies were interested. You know what I mean? Like now this is like now people see that there's momentum on this project and they're like, oh, it's happening. You know what I mean? Now I want to jump on the train. And so I think WeFunder has been really great in the sense that not only has it been for us to raise seed money and also build a community, it's also been a way for us to kickstart our own momentum of the film and garner interest that way. You know what I mean? Now people are like, it's insane. Like it's like the interest before is like zero, and then now it's like everyone wants it and wants a piece of the pie.
That's the
and
power of democratizing filmmaking, and I think that's where the future is headed. A lot of production companies, I think, should be wary of this and recognize that, like you said, WeFunder is basically democratizing filmmaking, where anybody who has some money saved up, they can pitch in Thomas's movie, have equity, and potentially get returns on the film for the rest of their lives. And so, one, if somebody is a movie buff and they want to be part of a project, boom, there you go. You pitch in some money, and now you get your name attached to a film, right? In whatever shape or way possible. And you don't have to be at the mercy of these studios anymore. You can just be at the mercy of the people. And you're going to be making the movie for the people anyway, so might as well let them be involved in the financing aspect of it. If you're not making a movie for a studio to watch, you're making it for the rest of the world to watch. And so I think WeFunder is such a powerful platform for movies going forward. And I'm excited to see you meet your goal of, what, it's $350,000.
Yeah.
That's a goal, right? Okay, yeah, you're easily going to meet that. So,
Yeah.
I'm sad for all the production companies that lost out on the opportunity to attach themselves to this project.
Well, we're still talking with some of them, so hopefully some of them come on board and help us, fill out the rest of the budget. But yeah, absolutely, what you said is so true. Like it's democratizing filmmaking. Anyone with a cool story, a cool idea, and a great presentation, a proof of concept can do it. They really can. Obviously, it's not easy. It takes a lot of work. If anyone's run a Kickstarter before, it's just like constant stress for a month. It's like, oh my God, am I going to hit the goal or not? But it's one way to do it. And I've always been someone who's had that go get it mentality. I think the Korean side of me like hates waiting. I'll be patient. But I also, if I can, make things go faster, I'll do whatever I can to make, put in the work and hustle and make things happen. So yeah, it's been a great way to, it puts the power back into the filmmakers, you know what I mean? Like both financially, time-wise, and also creatively, you know what I mean? There's a reason why a lot of big box office films often flop, is because the filmmakers are given notes from executives who haven't made a YouTube video before. You know what I mean? So it's difficult. There's a reason why a lot of Hollywood films fail, because of this reason. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully it goes well.
Yeah, hopefully. Hey, man, Thomas, I wanted to talk about one more thing that was related to more of the creative process. Obviously, you wrote and directed C, right? And the relationship between writing and directing is kind of conflicted because, as a writer, you envision your film in a certain type of way, and then the director kind of takes it the way he sees it, not as the writer sees it. So it's kind of a dynamic between the writer and the director. In your case, you were the writer and the director. So how was that? At the end of the day, were you happy with how it turned out? Is that what you envisioned in your mind when you were actually writing the script? And also, I wanted to ask you a two-part question. When you were directing, were there any really hard decisions you had to make that you kind of maybe regretted, but you were kind of iffy on, that it was something that you didn't really envision when you were writing it?
Yeah, absolutely. To your first question, it's at least the budget level that I'm working at, it's almost impossible to meet your own vision. Again, with the first project with C, I think, I wish I knew I should have, because it was my first one, there's a lot of things I learned, for my projects after that, I tend to over prepare so that I can unprepare during set, if that makes sense. I can just kind of play on set. with C, I think it was great. I think it turned out. I'm so thankful for the way it turned out. You know, making the movie and also after the movie in terms of its release and the audience that it's found. Very grateful for that. I think with the feature version, it'll be 10 times better. You know what I mean? 10 times cleaner, slicker, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm really, really excited to share that and make it into an actual movie. But it's difficult to, for example, with my other short I made last year in Korea, Busan 1999, that was a 1.5 day shoot. You know what I mean? Usually, you're shooting about 3 pages, about 3 minutes per day. That was an 11-minute short film that we shot in a day. It was actually longer than 11. It was like a 13-page script because we cut some scenes in a day and a half for like very, very little money, right? It was like less than 10K through post. And so what happens there is, I don't have the privilege to, I don't have the money to go over and have a ton of days. Because when you have a lot of time, then you can play. When you have time, you can let the creativity spark. Big films, they'll shoot 1 page a day, and for the entire day, 10 hours, you just figure out what needs to happen on the day. And I think that's a really great way to work. A lot of creativity, and it's a lot of fun. But also that's not the reality that I'm living in, you know what I mean? And so with that film, we have a storyboard. I planned meticulously every single shot, every single soundtrack that I think. Basically, I've edited the entire film in my head with sound, music, everything, color in my head before we shoot it, right? But then on set, electricity is out for 2 hours. We have to get out of location in an hour and 30 minutes, and we need 30 minutes to clean up and get everything out of here. So we have only an hour left. We already lost 2 hours of the day in the beginning because the electricity went out, and we didn't know where the freaking breaker box was. What do you do? You know what I mean? So now it's like problem solving. Yeah. Now it's like go time. You know what I mean? So now you're cutting in your head, you're editing in your head. You're like, how do I make this the most economic? Shoot this in the most economical way. And I think that also breeds a certain type of creativity. You know what I mean? So for example, like instead of covering a funeral scene with like a wide shot and then doing like a closer coverage. It's called coverage. Maybe I just want to shoot the entire thing by a close-up on someone's hand, right? Maybe I just want to see them like pull the cuticle off their fingernails. Maybe that's how I want to cover the scene. And so I think obviously you need a lot of preparation. You need everyone on your team, like DP, you and the producers, they need to know exactly what the film is and what that scene needs to accomplish. So it takes a lot of preparation, but if you do the preparation, I feel like when you're on a time crunch, it often becomes a way for you to become more creative. You know what I mean? Like instead of doing like a ton of coverage, we'll just get that one shot. You know what I mean? And in post and the editing, we won't have as much coverage and options, but like that close-up will tell so much more story and emotion than your traditional coverage. And so those are some hard decisions to make I had to make on set, but ultimately I kind of enjoy that thrill of you're on 2 hours of sleep, you haven't had lunch or breakfast, you have 1 hour to shoot 3 pages. What do you do?
Enjoy that thrill? Oh my goodness. I shot a live action short film, similar experience where I put in 10K of my own money, and the problem was nobody was getting sleep on set, and it killed me. I mean, I disagree, but maybe it was thrilling for the director, but the actors, me and my fellow co-actors, we were dying because of just how tired you get. But you're right though. I feel like some things on the page, you have your way of kind of imagining the film, but when you get on set, some things just don't click, don't make sense. Things go wrong, and sometimes they turn into a blessing for the movie itself. And I think that's the beautiful part of filmmaking. It's you never know what truly the end product will be until you finish filming. And so I don't know. I think that's
from
cool.
What Thomas said, it seems like it's a lot about adapting and kind of improvising, and I feel like that the improvising part can be beautiful because you can,
if you have a good producer on set, I think.
Yeah, but you kind of what Thomas is saying, you can have scenes that you adapt into that are even better than scenes that you maybe thought of when you were writing it, you know? So there is a beauty in it, but there's also a chaos element that, you know, everything can go wrong, shit can go down the drain. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a double-edged sword, definitely.
absolutely. I mean, filmmaking, I think, on set at least, it's finding, again, at the level that I'm working at, it's being given the location, the characters, and then the story, right? And so you have those three elements, those three core elements. Of course, they're like costume, all these other small things, but those three main elements. And how do you play with that and create lightning? And how do you capture that lightning in a bottle? That lighting of truth and authenticity. You know what I mean? And every single scene, you need to be able to capture that kind of truth and authenticity. It's just sometimes, obviously, again, there's a lot of preparation involved. And I think when you prepare as much as you can, then on set, you can like let it all go and just play. But also, during preparation, there's only so much you can do because you're not in the space with the actors, with everyone and the lighting and the team and everything. And so when all those elements come together, then you have to figure out a way that all fits together. You know what I mean? And so that's where the improv comes in. That's where the play comes in. That's where you figure out, how do I spark lightning? You know what I mean? With all these elements, all these different Legos, how do I make something at that moment? You have 5 minutes, 10 minutes at most before, lighting's done. And how do I block this scene? How do I make the actors move around? And how do we change this so that it fits the location and feels dynamic? You know what I mean? And how does this movement enhance the next scene? Or how does this, maybe bring into this them going through this door, they meet another character and that's like a foil for them. And then, suddenly there's like a different scene that might come up. And then you like at that night, you write that new scene and then you film it, at the end of the shooting schedule. And, it's just like figuring it out as you go, but also, as much preparation as you can.
Yeah. Good luck, Matt, when we shoot this thing. Matt and I working on a project, and he's a producer on it, so he'll see what you mean when he's on set. He'll...
Excited. I've always wanted to be I wanted to be an actor when I was younger, right? Like that was my goal, but my parents never wanted me to do it because they thought I was going to destroy my ego and, all the typical answers. But now that Ibrahim is kind of forefronting this, and I have the opportunity to even join film, I mean, to be part of the project, right? I'm all in. Like, I think it's extremely exciting that there's, it's like a genuine passion, right? So I'm just extremely excited. I'm really, honestly, dude, it's really inspirational what you've done. Like on your own, without anybody saying, hey, like maybe you should be doing this or that. You're just going after it, and you're killing it already, right? And so you're doing awesome, man, and I think you're gonna kill in the future too.
One last question, Thomas. There's a young kid right now in Concord, Massachusetts, wanting to make a film, a short film, a feature film. What's your advice to him? How do you make a good film, or how do you even get started in film?
Like I said, this is something. Well, first of all, make it personal. I think story-wise, story is king. Obviously, story needs to be personal. From there, again, like this has been my strategy, and I know it doesn't work for everyone. I know it doesn't, but for me, I've always put all my eggs in one basket. You know what I mean? I put all, whatever it takes to make that thing. If I need 7K, then I'll work a job over the summer. You know what I mean? I'll raise the money and then put it into the movie. You know what I mean? I'm not paying for rent because I live, if I'm in high school, I'm live with my parents, I need to pay for food, you can do it. It's doable. You know what I mean? There's always a way. And so you do that, you raise the money. And unfortunately, filmmaking is so bound to money, because it's an expensive medium. Put together the money, you have a script that you're very hesitant about, that you don't think is going to work, that you feel very ashamed, like you feel very embarrassed sharing with anyone. But that's how you know that it's personal. That's how you know that it means something to you when you're scared to show it off. You have a script that you're very hesitant about. You think it might be too this, too that, but then you just film it. You look up on YouTube. Everything you need to learn from film school, you can learn on YouTube, online. There's seriously like more than everything. And so do that. You find a collaborator, you find a producer, you cold call someone to help you make this happen, right? And then, they'll have the connections, the spider web, your network from there, and just kind of figure it out and make it as good as you can, as big as you can, and then jump as high as you can after that, and then move to the next project.
I hated to oversimplify this, but it's as simple as you said. Just get after it and go do it, and figure out a way if you have a will. I also want to say, to your point about being personal in your art. Martin Scorsese has a saying. He says the most personal is the most creative, and I think it's so true. And when you start making films, you realize that, man, like you said, the story of your friend. You said it's better than fiction. Like it's like more interesting, more dynamic, more versatile, much more nuanced. And sometimes we're trying to make this perfect story without realizing that, wow, all I had to do was look in the mirror. The personal story was in front of me, and I just have to tap in and access those parts of my personal story. So, well, thank you for coming, Thomas. Appreciate it, and good luck to you in finishing up the fundraising for Isle Child, your feature film. We hope you the best.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. It was lovely talking with you guys. Have a great night, and whoever's listening.
Whoever made it this far, wow, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I'll come back in a few years and we'll see how different my thoughts are, or how much I've changed. But
next time we'll interview Thomas at the Oscars when he's nominated for Isle Child, Best Director.
So, all right. Okay. All right.
Take care.